Hey guys, MetalJesus here, and today I'm extremely excited because we are on the cusp of a new console generation. And so in this video, I want to talk all about the PlayStation 5 compared to the Xbox Series. And we're going to talk about the games I'm looking forward to. I want to discuss a little bit about the backwards compatibility that we know, also the hardware and the pricing. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you which one or ones I plan on getting, as well as talk a little bit about the future of the Switch and also PC gaming. This is going to be awesome. Let's take a look. Now, before we get into the next generation, I do want to mention a little bit about the current generation. So currently, I primarily game on a PlayStation 4 Pro, as well as the Switch. Now, I got the original PlayStation 4 because there was a lot of games for it that I wanted to play. And so that was a pretty easy decision. And then I upgraded to the Pro version when I got a 4K television, and also I got the PlayStation VR, and I got really serious about VR, and I wanted the best experience with VR. And then, of course, the Switch is the handheld or the system that just keeps on giving. The Switch is so convenient. I use it all the time, and I've got a ton of games for it. I absolutely love it. It wasn't until Microsoft released the Xbox One X. By the way, I should throw out there that in this video, I probably will inevitably screw up the Xbox names because it's so confusing. Xbox One X, Xbox One S, Xbox Series S, Xbox Series S. Man, can you imagine working in retail and having to, it's hard enough to understand this as a gamer and keep it all straight in our minds. But if you were working in retail dealing with customers, what a pain in the butt. So anyways, I'll probably screw that up in this video, but I know all the differences. But anyways, and so I bought the Xbox One X when that came out because, well, it is a fantastic system and it's the most powerful gaming console currently, for the current generation, and third-party games look and play great on it. So it's a console actually I don't regret getting at all. And because I jumped in on it late, I was able to scoop up a bunch of Xbox One games really cheap when they were used or on sale. So that's kind of what I've been rocking currently. And so going into the next generation, the PlayStation 5 is kind of just a no-brainer for me as far as the trust of that brand. The PlayStation 4 kicked butt. The PlayStation 4 Pro was great. So many great games were released on that. And so, going into the next generation, PlayStation 5 is, like I said, it's a no-brainer for my opinion. Although when we get into the hardware, you'll see that there are some decisions to be made along the way when it comes to hardware and price. And so let's talk about PlayStation 5 games that I'm looking forward to. So to start off with, obviously we just found out recently about Final Fantasy 16. This was a little bit of a surprise, although I think most of us probably assumed that there was going to be a next Final Fantasy game. But just getting an announcement like that is always very exciting. Even though I haven't really been that hardcore about the Final Fantasy series recently, every time one of these games come out, it's always a milestone for gamers, because if you like Japanese RPGs, this is one of the biggest in the world. And so I think it looks pretty cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of The Witcher in its combat, and that is not a bad thing. So if this game turns out to be kind of a mix of, classic Final Fantasy mixed in with Witcher, that might be cool. I don't know, I could be reading too much into the trailer, but we'll see. The next game, man, the new Spider-Man. I watched this trailer and my jaw was on the floor the whole time. This was one of those trailers where it showed off the tech, it showed off the animation, but as the trailer went on, you were just sucked into what was happening on the screen. I mean, the combat looks amazing. It's one of those games and trailers where I just want to watch the movie. I want to play the game, don't get me wrong, but I would just sit there and watch somebody play that game. It looked fantastic. Insomniac Games, they are wizards when it comes to programming, and the Spider-Man games are amazing. So, getting a Spider-Man game on the PS5 is just going to be, again, no-brainer. I do believe this is going to also come out on the PlayStation 4, and we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit. So, but, it is going to be exclusive to the PlayStation hardware. So, if you're a big fan of Spider-Man, you're probably going to want the PS5 for the best experience with that. Next up, they showed Deathloop. Deathloop is by one of my favorite developers. Arcane Studios is what they're called. They created the Dishonored series, which were fantastic. I think they also did the most recent Prey game that came out. Super talented developer. Deathloop looks really interesting. I love the art style. I love the premise of getting into these time loops and trying to assassinate specific people. It looks really cool. I'm definitely into it. Then, of course, we got a teaser, only a teaser for God of War Ragnarok. Always a good time and always a big announcement, seeing that there's a new God of War game coming for the PlayStation 5. That's going to be amazing. And then also we know that Horizon Forbidden West is coming. That's part of the Horizon Zero Dawn series. It's no secret that Horizon Zero Dawn, I think, is one of the best games I've played in the last decade. It was one of the first games I got for my PlayStation 4 Pro and my 4K television, and I was blown away by it. I still think it's an absolutely amazing game. So that's going to be a day one purchase for me. And then I have to mention Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. For me, the Ratchet & Clank games are instant day one purchases. I've loved that series from the very beginning. When they came out on the PlayStation 2, I think the first 3 games are masterpieces. The kind of remake of the original on the PS4 was also very good. And so this one looks to kind of up the ante when it comes to the graphics. Plus, it's going to be using some of that new hardware technology to do the portals and kind of really take advantage of really fast hard drives and faster processors and stuff like that. So, man, again, a new Ratchet & Clank game that's going to be an instant buy for me. I do want to mention a couple other games that have been announced for PlayStation, but I don't think they're exclusive. Obviously, Black Ops Cold War is not going to be exclusive to the PlayStation brand, but I do love the Black Ops series. The storylines in the single-player campaigns are just this crazy mix of fantasy, conspiracy theories, history, and great shooting. I don't completely understand the entire plots of those games because they're just so crazy and out there, but they're super fun to play. I also am really looking forward to the new Resident Evil 8 called Village. I think that's going to be an instant buy because the 7th game was so amazing. This one looks just as good, if not better. And then the Oddworld game that's coming out is going to be interesting. I'm hearing some really cool things about the technology that they're using in the Oddworld game to, when it comes to like physics and particle effects and stuff. And the Oddworld games are always odd and interesting. So yeah, I'm going to definitely check that out. Now, one thing that's noticeably missing from the PlayStation announcements, at least in my opinion, is there was no new PlayStation VR hardware or really games announcement. And I thought that was pretty interesting because the PlayStation VR is amazing. It's actually way cooler than I ever expected it to be, but it definitely needs a hardware revision because the screen and some of the technology in there is definitely last gen. And so I was kind of hoping to see some PlayStation VR stuff. I mean, maybe that's coming. Maybe that'll be something that they do next year. They've mentioned that the PS5 is compatible with the PlayStation VR, which is great. But that was just a little bit disappointing because I do think that the PSVR has been successful for Sony. There continues to be a bunch of games released for it, so it was a little bit surprising. Now, when it comes to the games I want to play on the Xbox, there's a lot of them here, although almost all of them are coming out in 2021. That's a little bit of a theme here, but I want to go through a few of these here. Obviously, Halo Infinite is a bit of a heartbreak because it got pushed. It was originally supposed to be a launch title for the Xbox Series, but it got pushed until next year. It's hard to say why that is. I suspect it's probably a little bit due to some of the negative backlash that they got on the game. Personally, I actually went back and rewatched that trailer that was not streaming. You know, they upload the 4K raw version of that, and I actually thought the game looked, you know, decent. I mean, I thought it looked fine, but I don't know. Obviously, they feel like that there's more time needed for that, so that's a huge blow to obviously Microsoft. I think a lot of people probably were going to get a new Xbox because they want to play Halo, and now they're willing to wait a little bit. We'll get into that a little bit when we get into the hardware and some of the pricing issues. But another one that I thought that looked pretty interesting is State of Decay 3. That's the zombie deer or zombie horse. I don't know what that was at the end, but that game, if that's using the game engine, that looks next gen. That is an amazing looking game. I haven't played the previous two though. Speaking of amazing looking games, the next Forza Motorsport looks incredible. They said this was running with the Xbox Series X game engine and using all the latest ray tracing technology and all that sort of stuff. And honestly, these racing games are starting to look kind of like, you know, photorealistic, and this is definitely one of them. Another really interesting one I thought was by Rare, and that is Everwild. So don't really know much about this one. It looks to be something to do with magic, but for me, it just looked like an animated cartoon, and it's a new IP, and so that's really exciting. Something completely brand new. At least I'd never heard of it. Obsidian is an amazing developer, and they've so far announced 2 games for the Xbox and the PC. The first one being Grounded, which every time I see this game, I'm always reminded of the movie Bug's Life. I know it's not based on Bug's Life, but kind of reminds me of that because of the scale that it's set at. And I don't know if this is going to be my kind of game. It looks like it's going to be one of those multiplayer last man standing kind of games, but they are saying that it's going to have pretty strong story elements. So that could be kind of interesting. However, I was much more excited to see that they are working on what they call the next big Obsidian RPG called Avowed, which that looks right up my jam. That looks like something that might be Elder Scrolls like, or, you know, something big and cool like that. So I'm definitely interested in it, as well as a new Hellblade game by Ninja Theory. The first Hellblade game was shockingly beautiful and incredibly well animated and motion captured. This looks to be even more so, so that's very cool. Also should mention Psychonauts 2. It's cool that they got Double Fine as a Microsoft developer, and Psychonauts 2 is going to be probably just as cool as the original, so that's going to be a day one purchase for me. And then 2 other games that caught my attention, the first one being Warhammer 40k Darktide. So we don't know much about this game so far, but we're being told that it's going to be a first-person shooter in the Warhammer universe. The Warhammer universe is just so cool, so interesting. I've always wanted to read the books, but I definitely dig the game, so that's really interesting to see. And then last but not least, at least on my list of Xbox games I want to play, Fable. The announcement, just even the simple announcement of a Fable game is a system seller for me. I love the previous Fable games, even the third one, which wasn't great, but at least it was Fable and fun. A new proper Fable game coming to the Xbox, man, yeah, that's going to be killer. Now let's talk backwards compatibility, which is very important to me because I'm a game collector, and I suspect many of you who are subscribed to my channel are as well. So starting with the PS5, we basically know at this point that it's going to be backwards compatible with most PS4 games. As a matter of fact, they've said that PlayStation Plus is going to, if you are a PlayStation Plus member, that you will get a lot of the PS4 classics that will run on your PS5. So what that tells me is that there's no PS1, PS2, or PS3 backwards compatibility, at least on the hardware. Maybe you'll be able to stream it using their PlayStation Now technology, which is something, but not great. But I understand. At least they're going back a previous generation, which is cool, I guess. But when it comes to the Xbox Series, well, Microsoft's going all out here. So if I understand this right, basically what they've said is that if a game is already compatible with the Xbox One series of consoles, then it should run on the Xbox Series X or Xbox Series S. So the next generation. So what that means is day one, you should be able to run thousands of Xbox games, going all the way back to the original Xbox, and they're basically going to, for many of them, upscale them with new textures, or at least higher resolution textures, and also a 4K resolution. I guess it's depending on whether you get the S or the X, but that's pretty cool. So original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Xbox Series games. That's pretty cool. That's, again, from a game collector standpoint, that's pretty awesome. I guess you're just gonna have to put in the disc, and then it'll find a digital version on the Microsoft Store, download it, optimized to run on the new hardware, and you're good to go. So that is very cool. Now let's go ahead and talk about the hardware and the price. And both companies have very different strategies to get you to buy their next generation console. Let's start with the PlayStation 5. So the cheapest digital only version is gonna be $400. Now, if you want to use physical media, if you want to have your own physical game collection, if you want to buy them used or whatever, well, you're going to need to spend $100 more, and that will be the $500 version of the PlayStation 5. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the only difference between these two models really is just the inclusion of that disk drive there. I mean, the shape of the consoles is noticeably different, but that's pretty much it. So you're going to be basically paying a premium of $100 to use your physical media. And we're going to talk about why you might want to do that or might not a little bit later. But basically what this means is that both of those machines have the exact same technical specs on the inside. So if you want to play PlayStation 5 games, well, really it's $400. And then when it comes to the Xbox Series, well, Microsoft has been very creative in their strategy here, and I absolutely love it. So starting at the low end, they have the Xbox Series S, that is $300, and then you have the Xbox Series X, which is $500. So basically $200 between those two. So what's going on here is that the Xbox Series S is not the same internals as the Xbox Series X, and there's a very good reason for that. So they have some of the same internals and some of the same technology, but basically the Series S is designed for people who don't have a 4K television. If you want next-gen features, you want next-gen graphics and special effects, but you don't really plan on upgrading your TV anytime soon, or maybe you just don't need to, well, the Series S is probably going to be just fine for you. However, it's also important to note that the Series S is digital only. So again, no physical media. The Xbox Series X is for the gamer who doesn't mind paying a premium for the best performance on their big 4K television and also wants the ability to use physical media. It should also be noted that at least on paper, it seems like the Xbox Series X will be the most powerful gaming console next generation, at least at launch. And so with that pricing, Microsoft has a console that is $100 cheaper than the cheapest PlayStation 5, but then they also have the high-end version. It's a very surprising thing that they've done there, but it actually gets even crazier because they've also announced that you don't even have to buy them outright, that essentially through different retailers, you can essentially, it's not really a layaway, but basically you can do monthly payments almost like a cell phone service. And so they have a $35 a month version for 2 years. So if you pay $35 a month, you can get the fastest, most powerful Xbox. So you can get the Xbox Series X, and it also comes with 24 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Or if you want to save a little bit of money, or maybe you don't have a 4K television, for $25 a month, you can get the lower end Xbox Series S console, plus the 2 years of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't actually tried Game Pass myself, but tons of people have told me that they love it, and I can definitely see why, because you get access to, 100 games that will work day one on your Xbox and your PC. Plus, they just recently announced that they're going to also include EA games in there. There's a lot of people who like sports games. Plus, you're going to get all that back catalog stuff of, like Dead Space and Mass Effect. It's pretty cool that you also get, the Microsoft Game Studio games day of when they launch. That's pretty cool. And then something also too that is kind of new that Microsoft's bringing to the Ultimate package, and that's the ability to play games on your mobile device. And so if you have an Android device, you can stream all of these games to it, and that's pretty cool. So it's not exactly like a Switch, but if people want to be able to play remotely or on your, on the toilet or whatever, now you can do that with this Xbox Game Pass. So for $15, I'm kind of tempted to check it out, to be honest, because while I definitely prefer to get physical games, I can see the advantage of getting access to games day one just on your console, plus all the indie games to be able to check out. Probably what I would end up doing is trying a bunch of stuff and seeing, okay, this is a game I would like to buy, a physical version of to have for my collection. So that's kind of how I see myself doing it. I also do think that the mobile remote play is kind of cool, especially if the lag isn't that bad. So I might check that out. But really what I think is happening here with Microsoft's strategy when it comes to the Xbox Series and taking on the PlayStation 5 is that Microsoft probably knows going into this generation, most of us are just going to buy the PlayStation 5. It's a given. And I think that's why Sony hasn't even thought about doing some sort of payment plan. And Microsoft's going, you know what? Maybe we can get in on that, and that maybe people will buy the PlayStation 5. And then for $25 a month, you can get the Xbox Series S and hundreds of Game Pass games day one. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to ever buy a game from it. They maybe don't even care, but that's a pretty attractive, amazing deal. I think honestly that version of, being able to monthly payments on it, if you're on the fence, get a PS5 and get the Xbox Series S. Now, me personally, actually, I would go for the X, but that's a hell of a deal. By the way, I wanted to read something that Kelsey wrote on Twitter when it comes to the argument of whether you're really saving money getting a digital-only version of these consoles versus the physical version. So she says, I realize I'm supremely biased as someone whose business is selling used video games, but until digital games start getting significant price cuts after launch, I can't imagine the $100 discless system actually saves you money in the end, right? Unless you only ever play brand new games at launch, the money you save buying used games for less than half the original price just months after launch adds up quick. There's plenty of reasons to go digital, but cost savings isn't one of them. She's got a point. I mean, most of these games are going to cost $60 to $70 brand new. You buy 2 of them a year, and you've already wiped out that $100 savings when you could have potentially got it for half price just months after they come out. I always think back to when I finally jumped into the Xbox One. I have a bunch of games back there that I bought for $4, $10, $20. Actually, just the other day, I was in a GameStop, picked up the latest Need for Speed, or it was Payback, whenever that came out. $20, brand new. So just be aware that, getting that digital only might, save you $100 on, the upfront. But in the long run, it's really nice getting used games or being able to trade them, stuff like that. So just something to think about. So which of these consoles am I going to get? Well, it's probably no surprise. I am definitely interested in getting the full physical version of the PlayStation 5 because, again, it's just a brand thing. I mean, I love every PlayStation that they put out. And Sony has some amazing first-party games and developers, and I know that I'm going to want to play those as soon as possible. Even though some of those games are also going to come out on the PlayStation 4 Pro, I get it, but I'm going to want the biggest and the baddest. However, when it comes to the Xbox, I am really interested also in the Xbox Series X. And so for me, I've now got to decide, do I want to just pay for the main hardware up front, the $500, and get Game Pass, because I am interested in checking it out, or should I just get the $35 a month and, call it good? So it's really going to depend on how the pre-orders go. I may do the monthly payment thing on that. The other thing too is that you know, I really do think that Microsoft is in a great position with their first-party developers, especially in 2021 going forward. There's a lot of games I'm going to want to play on that. Plus, it's going to be the biggest, most powerful version, so all those third-party games that come out are going to I'm probably going to want to play on the Xbox Series X. So to answer the question, I do want both, and I think that Microsoft's strategy for this generation is going to allow that. That you don't have to come up with $1,000 to get both of them. You can come up with $535 for that first month. So that's kind of a clever thing that they've done. I will say. I think a lot of people are also going to do that. And then at the end here, I do want to mention the Switch as well as gaming on the PC. So the Switch this generation, I think, has just been amazing because, as you guys know, it's a hybrid console where you can play it on your HD television and you can play it in handheld mode, of which I do both every day. Every day I have it docked and I at least play Ring Fit Adventure, which is amazing. But then I'll undock it, and if my wife is watching a TV show or movie I'm not quite interested in, but I want to kind of be, hanging around with her, I'll have it in handheld mode. It's so versatile, and there's so many great games for it. And I am very excited for Nintendo to put out a 4K version of it next year, potentially. There's rumors that they've told developers to prepare for that, to make their games 4K ready. I think that's a smart move for them. Even if you don't have a 4K television, your next television is going to be 4K. That's just a given. Even the low-end models that you go and buy for $200, $250 are usually 4K televisions. So it is smart for Nintendo to do that, to do a revision of the hardware, make it a little bit more powerful, and also allow 4K video out. And so that would be amazing. I think they should do that. And then many of you have asked, do I game on a PC? And the answer to that is yes, but it's ancient. I have a Windows 98 machine, a Windows XP machine. I have several old Macs. The truth is that when I game, most of the time, I like to lay back on the couch with a controller in my hand. And I had high hopes for those Steam boxes. I thought that was going to be a really cool solution because I don't really, especially upstairs in my living room, I don't really want to have a keyboard and mouse, which I would mostly need for Windows, sitting on my coffee table. I really just like the ability to just kind of lean back on the couch and play games. So up until today, up until now, I don't really have a modern gaming PC. I do have a modern laptop that I use for video capture and stuff like that, but not really any modern gaming. Also, my main PC is a iMac because I spend a lot of time editing video, and a lot of that video is in 4K. This video here actually is shot in 4K, even though I'll release it in 1080p. So I have a pretty decent video editing computer, but no specific gaming PC. And, I don't know. It's something that I would look into for sure, but as of right now, I do really like consoles and the flexibility of it, but I'm not opposed to the idea. So who knows what, maybe next year I'll jump in. All right, guys, well, that is my take on the PlayStation 5 versus the Xbox series of consoles, coming very shortly, along with many, many games I am looking forward to playing. So I would love to know what you guys think down below. Did you pre-order the PlayStation 5? Are you going to pre-order the Xbox series? Love to know down in the comments. Also, what do you think about a next-gen Nintendo Switch? And hey, let me know if you have a kick-ass gaming PC as well. It's all very exciting stuff. I love this kind of stuff. I live in the retro, and I spend a lot of time doing retro gaming, but I'm also really fascinated with the most current technology and what game developers and hardware developers are doing. It's all gaming. It's all good. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.